Okay, so I was asked a couple questions regarding Kuach Nefesh. How far does it extend? What are the limits? So we know that on Shabbat we're allowed to do things that would otherwise be considered a violation of Shabbat if it's to save a person's life. So this means if you are directly involved in saving someone's life, for sure, there's no question about it. This is why doctors are allowed to perform surgeries, to save people's lives. But, it seems like today we allow people to do things that are not directly involved. We allow doctors to drive on Shabbat to the office to write a prescription for Tylenol. We know Tylenol is generally not considered to be saving somebody's life. We tell EMS drivers you're allowed to drive to a patient's house and stabilize the patients to save their life. But what about once the patient is stable? What's the justification for driving back to the hospital? So we give a lot of leniency on this, but as far as where is the line drawn, as far as how far does Pekuach Nefesh extend? So in looking this up, I found some answers that covers not only this topic but some other interesting topics that people have been asking about. Noahides, what about in war? Saving a hostage. Can you save one life of a Jewish hostage if it means 10 Jewish military, IDF members are going to be killed? They're all good questions. So I went to Rambam's Mishnah Torah, Hilchot Shabbat, chapter 2, if you'd like to follow along. And I just highlighted a few interesting ones, so I'm not going to go through the whole chapter, but I'll just point out the ones that I found relevant. So starting in chapter 2, halacha 12, says we should not help an idolatress give birth on Shabbat, even if payment is offered. We do not worry about the possibility of ill feelings being aroused. This applies even when there is no violation of the Sabbath laws involved. Now, this is interesting because we don't have to leave the corners of the field for the poor. We don't have to allow surrounding nations to come in and partake of that. But we did it so that we would have good relations with our neighbors. So it's always encouraged to, go above and beyond. Like there's an example of if a non-Jew drops his wallet, it's considered praiseworthy to return it to him. Is it legally, halakhically required? Maybe not, but it's considered praiseworthy. So we have good relations with people. But here we see if she's an idolatress giving birth on the Sabbath, um, not only do we not help her, we do not worry about the possibility of ill feelings being aroused. This is how negatively we were to view an idolatress. Now, of course, today it is certain people today, do they fit the criteria of idolatrous that this is describing in those times? That's a different discussion. But it says, in contrast, one may offer assistance to the daughter of a Ger Toshav. Ger Toshav meaning Noahide, which does not exist today. We don't have the Yovel, so halakhically, it's not something that exists. I understand people are getting scammed into thinking that it does. I encourage you to watch my video on the Noahide scam. Okay, but when we did have a Ger Toshav, one may offer assistance to a daughter of a Ger Toshav who gives birth, since we are commanded to secure his well-being. We may not, however, violate the Sabbath laws on her behalf, meaning we can't carry on Shabbat, can't carry scissors to cut the umbilical cord for you. So, we would violate any Shabbat law imaginable to help a Jewish woman in need if she's pregnant. For sure, if her life's in danger. But everyone thinking that if a Noahide what was legally allowed to be a group that we could accept today, that's somehow an alternative to being Jewish. There's no laws in halacha that give that opinion, which is why it's very dishonest for rabbis to be teaching that anybody should be a Noahide as an alternative to converting to Judaism. Okay, halakha 15. When a woman dies while in labor on Shabbat, a knife should be brought on Shabbat. We don't carry. even if it must be carried through the public domain, and the woman's womb cut open and the fetus removed, for it is possible that it will still be alive. The rationale for this ruling is that the Sabbath laws are violated even when there is only a possibility of saving a life. And even in such instances where there is no hazakah on which to base our presumption that the fetus is alive. Commentary on this says, generally a living person can be assumed to continue to live until we are certain that he has died. Although such a presumption cannot be made with regard to this fetus, permission is nevertheless granted for the Sabbath laws to be violated on its behalf. So even if we have no reason to think that the fetus is alive, just on a small possibility, we're told we need to do what would be a violation of Shabbat otherwise, just on the small possibility that we can be saving a life. And we're going to go into more into details as we progress through this. Halacha 16. All activities necessary to save a life should be performed on the Sabbath. There is no necessity to receive license from the court. You don't have to ask your rabbi. You don't need permission. The more zealous one is in this regard, the more praiseworthy. What is implied? If one sees that a child has fallen into the sea, one may spread out a net and hoist him up, although one catches fish together with them. Trapping is not allowed on Shabbat, but for sure, if we see a child drowning, even though we catch a fish, we need to save that child's life. If a person hears that a child fell into the sea and spreads out a net to hoist him up, but raises up only fish, he is absolutely free of liability. Even though the human life was not saved, you're not liable for violating Shabbat because your intent was to save a life. Pretty clear, right? How far does it extend? The very next sentence. If he intended to raise up fish, not a child. If he's intending to go fishing, which is something that would be prohibited and he would be punished for. If he intended to raise up fish, and in fact lifted up both fish and a child, so if he accidentally saved a child, he's not held liable. Since he lifted up a child together with the fish, he is not held liable even when he did not hear that the child had fallen into the water. He had no idea there was any possibility of saving a child. He was just going fishing. He's not held liable. This is the level that we put life on. Halacha 17. If a child fell into a pit, a person may dislodge a clod of earth and lift the child up, even though he creates a step when he dislodges it. We wouldn't be able to create steps normally on Shabbat. If a door was locked with a child inside, a person may break the door down and take the child out, even though he chops it into pieces of wood, which are appropriate to use for work, lest the child become frightened and die. So even though he's creating firewood that he can benefit from, it's allowed. And they used to think that people could die from fear. So in the event that they're under the impression this child could die from fear, it's allowed. If a fire broke out and a person is inside the building, and we fear that he may be consumed by the flames, a person may extinguish the fire to save him. Normally we don't extinguish a flame on Shabbat, although he prepares a pathway while extinguishing the fire. In all the above instances, whoever acts first to save the person is praiseworthy. One does not need to ask permission from the court in any instance where there is a danger to a person's life. In any instance. Halacha 18. When an avalanche has fallen and there is a doubt whether or not it has fallen over a person. Okay, there's several commentaries here I want to read. So, when an avalanche has fallen, there is a doubt whether or not, let's read that commentary. A person was seen in the vicinity of the avalanche, and we are unsure whether or not he was able to escape or not. So we don't even know that there's a person in there. Maybe there is, maybe there's not. There's a doubt whether or not it's fallen over a person. Next commentary. The Maggid Mishnah, which was authored by Yosef Karo, same author as the Shulchan Aruch, mentions that this leniency is granted even when there are several doubts involved. Perhaps the person was not trapped under the avalanche. Even if he was trapped, perhaps he's no longer alive, and the performance of the labor clearing will be to no avail. We're still granted the permission. It may be cleared. If the person was discovered to be alive but was crushed by the fallen debris to the extent that it is impossible that he will recover, maybe the person was cut in half, his heart's still beating, he's still breathing, we know he's not going to survive. If the person was discovered to be alive but was crushed by the fallen debris to the extent that it is impossible that he will recover, the debris may be cleared and the person taken out to enable him to live, however long he does. Even temporary life is still life. So, commentary on that is that this communicates a fundamental concept in Torah law, not rabbinical, Torah law. Even a fleeting moment of a Jew's life is precious enough for all possible efforts to be performed to save him, even if it is necessary to violate scriptural law. Halacha 19. If in the process of clearing the debris, the diggers reached his nose and saw that he was not breathing, he should be left there, for he has died already. Although it is discovered that people on the upper level of a landslide have died, one should not assume that those on the lower levels have died. Instead, the debris should be cleared away from all of the people, for in a landslide it is possible that those on the upper level will die, while those on the lower level will remain alive. So even if you find dead people in the avalanche, we still don't stop clearing on, again, the small possibility that there may be a life that can be saved under them. Halakha 20. When an avalanche fell on a courtyard in which were located both Gentiles and Jews, even if there were 1,000 Gentiles and only one Jew, we should remove all the debris for the sake of the Jew. Commentary on that says, this halakha is based on the following principle. As mentioned in halakha 12, we may not violate the Sabbath laws to save a Gentile's life. So if we have 1,000 Gentiles and only one Jew, we're to clear all of the debris to save the life of one. And this sort of relates to the question about if there was one Jewish hostage. Is one justification for doing this, that, or the other, whatever it may take to get that one Jew out? Now, this is speaking about violating Shabbat, melachot. This is not talking about war, but to me, this gives the proactive measurements that we should take to save the life of one potential Jew. Should one of the individuals leave and enter another courtyard, okay, so remember we have 1,000 Gentiles and one Jew. If one of the individuals, we don't know if he's Jewish or Gentile, if he leaves and enters another courtyard and that courtyard collapse upon him, we should remove the debris. 1,000 to 1, chances are it's most likely a Gentile, but even on the possibility that this is a Jew, we need to remove it just in case. Perhaps the person who departed was a Jew, and all those who remained were Gentiles. So perhaps 1,000 Gentiles stayed, one Jew left. We need and that building collapsed on him. We need to discover if there's a way to save his life, because that could be a Jew. Halakha 21. When they all left this courtyard to go to another courtyard, and as they were proceeding, one of them, whose identity is unknown, departed and entered a third courtyard and was covered by an avalanche. The debris should not be removed from him. Let's look at the commentary on that. Okay, again, this ruling depends on Rav Yitzhak Alfasi's interpretation of Yoma 84b. Other authorities differ, as mentioned above. Okay, but since they left their original place, the presence of a Jew is not accepted as an established fact. Hence, we assume that anyone who is separated from this group, as it was proceeding, was part of the majority. Accordingly, if the majority were Jewish, even when a person separated from them and entered another courtyard, after they left their original place was covered by an avalanche, we should remove the debris from him. So it's giving you a factor here of, was the majority of the people Jewish and one of them left? Then we can say chances are this was a Jew, because that was the majority. And if we haven't established that, so it's a little tricky on that one because there's a different law in place. Was the majority Gentile or was the majority Jewish? But we can see the theme here. So halacha 23, the following rules apply when Gentiles lay siege to Jewish cities. Commentary on that. Although these laws surely apply to Jewish communities in the land of Israel, these same laws are also relevant to Jewish communities in the diaspora. Now, current events, there was a siege in the land of Israel, and it was on the border, so this is for sure relevant to there, which is what the question was originally uh, asked of me. If their intent, we'll start over. The following rules apply when Gentiles lay siege to Jewish cities. If their intent was financial gain, Sabbath laws should not be violated because of them, nor are we allowed to wage war against them. So if they're coming in to steal, we don't want to violate Shabbat over that. If a city is located near the border, which this city was, however, we should march against them with weapons and wage war against them, even when they are demanding hay or straw, something that's in abundance. Why? Because in any location, if the Gentiles' intent was to harm Jewish lives, or if they engaged in battle with a city or laid siege to it without stating a specific intention. Um, Commentary on this: war must be waged against them because it is possible that their intent is to kill. This attack that happened recently, for sure, their intent was to kill. That's what they did. Hence, we follow the principle that the Sabbath laws may be violated even when there is merely a question of a threat to life. We must wage war against them, and the Sabbath laws should be violated because of them. It is a mitzvah, commentary, i.e., an obligation, which describes the mitzvah in Leviticus 19:16. Do not stand idly by while your neighbor's life is in danger. So I think this is why it makes a distinction. If they're coming and attacking for money, uh, we can make more money. We can replace whatever objects that are stolen. However, if it's on a border, then I think it's more questionable because their intent is to probably do more damage than just stealing things. So it's a mitzvah, and we just read the commentary, for every member of the Jewish people who can come to their assistance to go out and aid their brethren who are under siege and save them from the Gentiles, although it is the Sabbath. It is forbidden to delay until Saturday night. You can't postpone the action. You have to go right away. After they have saved their brethren, they may return home with their weapons on the Sabbath, again carrying, so that a dangerous situation will not be created in the future. Halacha 24. Similarly, if a ship is sinking at sea or a city is surrounded by a flooding river, it is a mitzvah to go out on the Sabbath and use every possible means to save them. Even when a single individual is being pursued by Gentiles, by a snake, or by a bear with the intent to kill him, it is a mitzvah to save him. Even when it is necessary to perform several forbidden labors on Shabbat, it is even permitted to forge weapons to save him. Similarly, we should cry out to God on behalf of Jews in danger, make supplications. Normally, we don't do this on Shabbat, and sound the trumpets to summon help for them. So, again, with the question of where do we draw the line? Where do we say it's only one Jew? It's too different. It's too dangerous. It would be an unacceptable amount of casualties to try to save him. It doesn't say that, but when I see a halakha telling us what we are to do, I think if you want to challenge that and say that that doesn't apply based on whatever reason you're going to give, I think you have to have something that you can point to say, based on this halakha, I don't think we apply this. Without somebody pointing out to me what that halakha would be, to me, I have to go by what we're proactively told to do, which to me, on all just the possibilities, even when we don't have any reason to assume there's a life there, this is how far we're allowed to go on Shabbat. There's death penalty associated with Shabbat. This tells me we can extend what we're allowed to do in the name of Pekuach Nefesh pretty far. So if you have any comments on that, leave them in the comments below. I would like to see them.